Thanks for playing our game. So you're familiar with the concept of the elephant in the room? One year for a service, we actually built a life-size, probably adolescent, three-dimensional elephant and put it right in the center of the room. Today, we've got the earth in the room. The earth in the room with our focus on climate this morning, which we'll hear a little bit more about later. So I love the metaphor, figuring out how to pass it, right? How to touch it, how to hold it, what to do with it exactly, how to work together, how to watch for the obstacles. What do you do when earth is in your hands? So thanks to Allison and Katie for dancing the earths in for us very much. Thank you. And thanks to the folks who cleaned up the roadside. This congregation has adopted a piece of highway, and Elias is the great cheerleader and leader of this. Thank you for cleaning up the road. I heard there was substantial stuff to clean up today. More than we thought. Paul's always disappointed when there isn't much to pick up. So I'm really... No disappointment. Thanks to the folks who cleaned up the Yuba River territories yesterday. Yeah, very much. Who was that in the room? Who went on the river cleanup? Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the postcard writers yesterday and beyond. Who are the postcard writers? Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Gail, for organizing that. Because all of these things eventually, really, right, in some ways support being in a caring, respectful, and right relationship with the world, with our earth, the earth out of which we are born. So thank you. I invite us all to silence our cell phones now that we've batted some earths around. And I invite us to take a moment to very genuinely and warmly and sensitively to greet our fellow earthlings. So if you would greet the earthlings near you and make sure all the earthlings are greeted well. Wonderful. I did not introduce myself. I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarsa. I am privileged to serve this community, this congregation. And Eileen, who is faithfully hosting the people who are on Zoom every week, offers our land acknowledgement this morning.
Each week we begin our service by acknowledging that the land on which we live, work, play, and worship has been the homeland of others for thousands of years. Instead of seeing humans as dominating or conquering the land, those who preceded us have always seen humans as part of the natural world, living on and with the earth as stewards, protectors, cultivators, partners, and kin. As the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe moves forward in reclaiming some of its homelands, their view of true conservation means humans returning to the land, merging ancient wisdom with modern, environmentally friendly technology. They seek opportunities for collaboration, systemic change, and deep healing in this process. May these black oak acorns remind us that restoration of the land and restoration of the Nisenan people are inseparable. May we support the tribe in whatever ways we can, under their guidance and at their request.
Good morning. Good morning. A poem by Jerry Kishpa Hildebrand. Committed to respond. Committed to respond to the call of a wonderful world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but well-being. A world of new peace and abundance for all. As we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, may we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and with love.
And with the lighting of our chalice, a symbol of our tradition, we send a piece of that light to Kids Connection today with Lindsay, thank you, and with song, This Little Light of Mine.
Good morning. Welcome to what is unofficially being called Trash Sunday here at the Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains. That can lead one's mind in all kinds of directions, can't it? Some of you started the morning by picking up litter along our adopted section of Ridge Road, and we hope many of you will stay for Paul Elias' second act this morning, a presentation on the state of trash in Nevada County. I'm Cheryl Morris, serving as worship associate. Unitarian Universalists all over the country this weekend are participating in a climate justice revival. In recent years, the intersection between climate and justice has become more clear and more urgent. The revival is a step toward linking two of our deeply held commitments, working on behalf of our planet and behalf of our fellow beings. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, maybe even a first-time visitor this morning, you'll find we're an idealistic bunch. We come from many backgrounds, and we come for many reasons. Our services are varied, as are our involvements in the world outside our walls. Occasionally, we on the worship team hear concerns that there is too much or not enough focus on spirituality, and too much or not enough focus on justice. I hope I'm not oversimplifying when I say our collective belief is that one supports the other. Spiritual beliefs can lead to justice work, and justice work can be a spiritual practice. Well, this is a big topic. Paul's leadership provides opportunities for practical action before and after the service. Our invitation today is to feed your spirit and satisfy your need to do something. The bigger invitation to all of us, always, is to explore new ways of thinking and doing and being in the world. Welcome.
While it's fresh, I want to name that Paul planned for this Sunday to be the trash pickup and to do a presentation on trash in Nevada County before knowing that this Sunday had an environmental theme in a lot of UU congregations. So well done, Paul. And we had this middle-sized earth. A couple of our young persons associated with the congregation carried it in the Constitution Day parade with the climate folks. And Carol Kuzora saw this, this size, and said, "I have a big one." I said, "Oh, I've been wanting a big one." She said, "I'm not sure what you're going to do with it, but I'll bring it over." So yay to Carol Kuzora for providing the big earth.
Did you blow that up?
I used to pride myself in blowing up large things with my lungs, but that's a little too big, and time has come on. Just a minute, I got to find where I am here. Oh, we're about to sing. We're about to sing, which I love, right? I'll point out once again that it regulates our breathing. It synchronizes our breathing, right? It vibrates our vocal cords and whole bunches of our body parts. So it does many things at once. So it's one of those very linking, and for me, transcendent things to sing together. So we're about to sing a song called Ancient Mother. And when popular words, quotes, prayers, songs, or rituals are claimed to be Native American by European Americans, that's always a question for me, is that true? Because usually, most of the time, these are things that were inspired by Native American wisdom and cultures. So with that caveat, we're going to sing Ancient Mother. It's labeled a traditional Navajo or Diné prayer, but I've never been able to verify that claim. So I'm inclined to label it as inspired by Diné culture and the intimate relationship of so many indigenous peoples to the earth. So I invite you with that in mind and heart to rise in body and or in spirit and to sing and to breathe and to vibrate together. So Zoom folks, here's a heads up that in a minute, I'm going to ask for some raising of hands and then afterwards some interaction. So if you're willing to turn your cameras on. Cheryl noted the climate justice revival weekend being undertaken by a number of UU congregations around the country this weekend. And like a number of other UU congregations who are choosing to hold their climate change weekends after the election, we here at UUCM too are looking forward to that in the new year. Exploring holding the two-day event maybe as a multi-generational event. Well, it's a multi-generational event, but maybe as an interfaith event, maybe as an intercongregational event, maybe somewhere around Earth Day. Entering deeply in that work, this intersection of climate change and justice, recognizing that the impacts of climate change are not distributed equally. That low-income communities, communities of color, and indigenous populations often bear the brunt of climate-related disasters and health issues. Just look at the last week, right? Some of the flooding. In anticipation of that possibility and as grounding for it, our focus this morning is on something more foundational, on our basic relationship with the earth and why that matters in our tradition. I wasn't feeling a need to make the case for the existence of climate change this morning, but I decided I shouldn't assume. So let's start with the basic awareness of each other. Here in the room and on Zoom, who has a sense that climate is changing significantly and in ways that will have drastic impacts on humanity as well as much other life on the planet? Clara's standing up. Yes, bunch of hands online too. Feel free to show those, Cypress. And is anyone who doesn't feel there's a significant climate change going on? Yeah, doesn't feel, yeah. And anyone who's not sure? Okay. So as for how you're feeling about climate change, how worried or anxious are you on a day-to-day basis, I'm wondering, about climate change, about climate crisis, or climate collapse, depending on how you perceive it? So who feels so worried that it's sometimes difficult to function, or maybe to sleep, or sometimes immobilizes you, overwhelms you with the fear? Who's in that category? Sometimes it's just too much. Okay. Who feels the climate crisis as a significant heavy weight? It kind of is a weight that you carry all the time, the sustained, chronic, low-level worry or anxiety that you sometimes have to hold at bay. Who's in that category? Lots of folks in the room and on Zoom. Who feels the concern very genuinely, but is not too anxious about it? It doesn't quite reach you in that emotional way that has you out of sorts. You're aware of it and you care, but it doesn't really reach you that way. Yeah, thank you. Who typically just tunes it out because it's just too much? Self-preservation. Sometimes that's the self-preservation, right? Tune it out. And finally, who is motivated and activated by climate change or climate crisis? Who finds kind of passion and purpose in your awareness of it? These aren't mutually exclusive, right? Yeah, some people, a good number of people. So thank you. It's really nice to see your faces online, everybody. And so here's a question I'm going to ask for your answer. And it could come in two ways. You could name it out loud briefly, and I'll call it back so everyone gets to hear. If it's something you really want to say in your voice, Andy's prepared with the microphone. And the Zoom folks, if you would type into the chat, because Eileen is going to share what comes through from you. So here's my question. What is your worry or your fear exactly? Your worry or fear. What are you afraid is going to happen? You feel it quite clearly. Anybody?
So then we're going to dry up. We're going to be like Mars.
That we're going to dry up. That we're going to be like Mars.
I have a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old grandchildren.
Claire, let's get a microphone to you because you often have more to say. More than I can remember to repeat.
So I have a 9-month-old granddaughter and a 3-year-old grandson, and I'm really concerned about what we're going to be handing off to them.
Concern for your grandchildren. Yeah. Who else? When you were afraid of it, what are you afraid is going to happen?
I'm afraid that our soil is just being scorched, and our top layer, which is very thin, is going to dehydrate and not grow sufficient food for the people on the planet, or in certain areas that are really needed to grow that food.
Thank you. So concern for food based on the soil condition. Concerned about the death of life in the oceans.
I'm worried about global migrations.
I'm worried about global migrations and the disruptions to them.
I'm worried that our young folks are losing hope that we can do something and just giving up.
Worried that our young folks are losing hope that we can do something and are just giving up. Sue.
My fear is that climate change creates a lot of anxiety in humans and anxious humans in the area.
Worried that climate change creates a lot of anxiety in humans, and anxious humans can be very disruptive, right? Yeah, destructive.
You know, what's driving the whole thing is greed. Greed for this, greed for that. And the companies are, they're greedful. There were, there are 100,000 people out in the desert starving. And our greed is going on and on and on. And I really think it's going to destroy us. And maybe it'll be a good thing if it does.
A couple more from the room, and then I'll ask Eileen for what's happening on Zoom.
I'm really worried about the low-lying communities in the islands, and in the East Coast right now, they're having the terrible cyclone problems, and the people are getting flooded and flooded. We have so many thousands and thousands of people who are trying to dig out from these many feet of water in their homes. And where is everyone going? And, this just gets worse and worse. And I don't want us to become complacent when these tragedies happen so often. We just need to do something.
So low-lying communities already impacted, and you fear that that will become worse and worse. One more from the room before we turn to Zoom. Gwen. I'm afraid that people are not willing to give up what needs to be given up in order to make change. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Eileen, what are you seeing on Zoom? In Cyprus, would you spotlight Eileen?
Well, I started with, I worry about floods and fires and tornadoes, and then somebody mentioned oceans, and I join in that one. Global chaos due to food shortages, planet up in flames and/or underwater. I am worried that climate change will affect the lives of my grandchildren. An uninhabitable planet. Yes, concern for younger generations. Losing the beauty and wonder of creation. More devastating wildfires. Ultimately, existential threat to humanity. Starvation worsening. And more than one, fire, our ocean, almost all areas of our Earth, more catastrophic events than ever overwhelming our planet. Forest fires, no food, crumbling of society. That my children are terrified or anxious. Increasing drought and subsequent deaths for humans and the rest of the living world. And one comment that my grandson is volunteering for Sierra Club and will be attending law school next year.
Perfect.
One more. Our children and beyond will be left an uninhabitable home.
I was going to say the law school was a perfect segue. Heavy. Oh my goodness, right? Even just hearing the litany, right? My shoulders feel heavier. So I invite you to let your shoulders unwind for a moment. Breathe. Breathe into your belly, perhaps. So one more question. In what do you find hope? What gives you reason for hope when it comes to climate change?
There've never been so many environmental studies in colleges.
There have never been so many environmental study programs in colleges.
I believe that California was setting a record of some kind this last weekend for the number of volunteers involved with cleaning up the local environment.
Excellent, yeah. Other things in which you find hope?
That there are young people who are finding solutions or working for solutions.
That there are young people who are finding solutions or working for solutions. Allison.
That there are elders who care about what is happening, even though their time may not be as long as the youngers.
That there are elders who care what's happening, even though their time might not be as long as youngers. Yes.
Increased awareness as evidenced by our congregation.
Increased awareness as evidenced by our congregation. A few more from the room.
The sustainable farmers, the people that are giving back the soil, including my little garden, that building back the soil to hold that moisture.
The sustainable farmers. The sustainable farmers who are bringing back the soil, including people in their own homes, right here, like yourself. A couple more from the room. What brings you hope? Where do you find hope when you're around climate change? Alan's behind you. Oops. Andy? Yeah.
The leadership that has been shown and comes and goes, but still with us from youth themselves who are really outshining their elders.
The leadership of youth who are really outshining their elders. And one more?
The Inflation Reduction Act does address climate change.
Inflation Reduction Act does affect climate change. One more in the very back.
The scientific ingenuity of human beings.
Scientific ingenuity and creativity, right? Scotty has to get one more now.
In spite of the daunting challenges.
In spite of the daunting challenges.
In spite of our frayed sense of community.
In spite of our frayed sense of community.
Neighbors came over 2 nights ago on the spur of the moment and moved a bunch of chairs for me.
Neighbors came over the other night on the spur of the moment and moved a bunch of chairs for me, right? Neighbors. And Liana, last one.
Well, when I can get calm enough and breathe and be present and just sit, in my heart, I feel like it's going to be all right.
When I can sit still and be calm enough in my heart, I know it's going to be all right.
It just feels like it to me.
It feels like it to you. Yeah. Thank you. And Eileen on Zoom in Cyprus, if you'd be willing to highlight Eileen, spotlight Eileen. What gives you hope?
The blue wave, continuing education and awareness, listening to young people, such wisdom and clarity, that humans are finally acknowledging the reality, that the next generation will take positive action and find the way to combat this huge problem. Family working in renewable energy and oceanic conservation. I think people are beginning to get it. We need our young people to get on board quickly, and we need to work and support our planet in all ways. New inventive solutions to trash and so-called disposable gadgets, etc. Irises. Community engagement in caring for the earth, bringing diverse individuals together, that we know how to address it, even if we're not doing enough yet. Human beings have a talent for U-turns at the edge of the cliff. And increasing attention to traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK, including traditional burning.
There's something motivating about a literal dead line, right? Right, that moves us, if only earlier. Right? Thank you all. I invite you to shake your hands out. Shake your arms out as needed. Let your shoulders roll and relax if that works for your body. And settle in. Thank you. Today's service title comes from the book This Sweet Earth by Lydia Wiley Kellerman, who wrote the book and its poems and prayers to answer her own question. What does it mean to be a parent in the age of climate change? So, writing about raising her young children in a suburb of Detroit, her book's full title is This Sweet Earth, Walking with Our Children in the Age of Climate Collapse, which tells you a bit about how she's seeing the challenge. The depth of that kind of worry was really brought home to me very starkly several times recently when I heard conversations in which people were talking about the young people they know because of climate change or the possibility of climate collapse, really struggling with the question of whether or not to bring children into the world at all. They were really struggling with that question. Lydia Wiley Kellerman comes to the conclusion, after dancing and wrestling with her questions, and primarily after being led by her young children's open-eyed, attentive presence in the world, right? The things that they saw. She comes to the conclusion that though the future remains unknown, we can still join our children in the beauty and the hope of the struggle. Based on what she says elsewhere in the book, I would round that out for our focus this morning to say that we can still join our children in the beauty and the hope of both this moment and the struggle. Early in her book, Wiley Kellerman writes of the Oxford Junior Dictionary, which, because it's meant to be briefer than the big, giant dictionaries, right? There's always this question of what do you include in the Junior Dictionary? It's kept intentionally brief, and so choices have to be made. She notes that over the past 15 years, there has been an influx of technological words added. Words like broadband, email, and cut and paste. While words like acorn, willow, and dandelion have been removed. More than 50 nature words removed in 2007 and 50 more in 2012. Bluebell, fern, kingfisher, adder, bramble, raven, heather, heron, wren, newt, otter. Deemed not necessary, she writes, or commonplace enough for children anymore. Her book is filled with these beautiful stories of her children noticing something and then her following their lead to spend time with it, staying up for much of a night to watch a turtle lay eggs, for example, or the beauty of a flock of birds taking off from a tree, or the veins in the leaf on a plant they notice in the backyard. And she offers over the course of her own wrestling with the question a variety of ways to approach and face climate change with a lens of justice, which her parents handed to her. In her third chapter, she gives, I think, a launching place for the conversation this morning. Based on her experiences with her children, she shares the wisdom of a Senegalese environmentalist, Baba Dioum. So from Senegal, his original words are, "In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand. And we will understand only what we are taught." Lydia paraphrases this as she considers her experiences and her young ones. You can't save a place you don't love. You can't love a place you don't know. And you can't know a place you haven't learned. You can't save a place you don't love. As the beginning. We Unitarian Universalists have just re-articulated our values. There's a flower symbol of them up there to help us live those values, naming in the process that love is at the center of all of them, meaning that our UU values are centered in love and that all those values are expressions of love or manifestations of love. Those are what love looks like if we live it. Now, I know the language of love gets a little too flowery for some of you. Essayist and nature writer Barry Lopez points out that we're not talking about something light or fluffy or simple here. And he says we're not talking about infatuation. He writes that suddenly loving without really knowing is to opt for romance and not commitment and not obligation. To love suddenly without really knowing is to opt for romance, not commitment and obligation. So parallel to you can't save a place you don't love, you can't love a place you don't know, and you can't know a place you haven't learned, Barry Lopez frames the climate question at hand this way. In this trembling moment, is it still possible to face the gathering darkness and to say to the physical earth and to all its creatures, including ourselves, fiercely and without embarrassment, I love you, and to embrace fearlessly the burning world? There's the question I would forward to us today. In this trembling moment, is it still possible to face the gathering darkness and to say to the physical earth and all its creatures, including ourselves, fiercely and without embarrassment, I love you, and to embrace fearlessly the burning world? We'll come back to this sweet earth and love at the center, and the invitation to embrace fearlessly the burning world after we take some time to breathe and embody the reality that we hold in us and among us the full range of human feelings: longing and worry and elation and grief and terror and delight and shame and lostness and inspiration, whatever it is that you carry this morning. So to help us notice what that is, I invite us all to take a few expansive and maybe noisy reorienting breaths. Might take a couple. One more. And then to let your breathing settle where it settles, right now. Aware of where you most feel your breath in your body. Maybe at the edges of your nostrils, maybe in the chest, maybe in your lungs, maybe in the movement of your belly. Where do you most readily feel your breath in your body? The body really knows what's going on. So what feelings are you feeling this morning, for all the reasons known and unknown that you might be feeling them? And therefore, what thoughts or prayers or simple deep listening, or maybe it's deep breathing, what surfaces in response? I invite you to stay there with that, with each other, breathing. And for those who are new to this ritual, there's a chance to take a stone from the table, honoring all that's in you right now, this hard, tangible object, many of them beautiful too, and to place them in the bowl of water, the symbol of all that holds you, including in this moment, this room full of people. It's to stay with our breath, with our prayers, with our intentions, and with each other.
Earth by Mark Bellatini. This is our earth. It falls through heaven like a pearl in a glass of plum wine. There are no other earths that I know of. There are no other skies that we have mapped. This is our earth. The oneness who gave birth to it remains nameless. There was no midwife then to bring us word of the birth cry. We only rejoice that it is. This is our earth. Ice caps her head, glaciers clasp her feet, warm wind like the breath of a lover breathes around her breast, mountains thrust up to the sky, bringing joy. Storms blow across the shores, bringing fear. Silvery fish capture sunlight and bring it down into the deep as on shore. Valleys spread with ripening fruit. Cities teem with the poor and disenfranchised in the shadow of golden towers. Children live and also die. Highways throb. Monks sit in silence. Mothers work. Crickets chirp, teachers plan, engineers design. Fathers write letters, people marry with and without the blessings of law. People cry. They laugh and brood and worry and wait. This is our earth. There are no other earths. Before its wonder, philosophers fall silent. Before its mystery, poets admit their words are shadow, not light. And all the great names religious teachers have left to us, Ishtar, Shekinah, Teramatur, Suchness, Wakantanka, Gaia, suddenly refuse to announce themselves. And so we too fall silent, entering the time where words end and reality begins.
That last picture was South Carolina, where I served before, which had some significant water this weekend. I am so glad you wanted to talk about radically realized eschatology this morning. I'm not sure I can do this totally successfully, but I'm going to make a start at it. Eschatology is another of those fancy religion words that theologians work with, and it has to do with the study of final things, last things, end things. The ends meaning both the purpose of human existence and the final destiny of humankind. Eastern religions typically frame existence in continuous cycles: birth into fullness, into decay, into death, into disintegration, into rebirth, and so on. Our tradition's rigid Christian ancestors were a whole lot more black and white about such things. There's a start and there's an end. We go from here to there, and the end is going to get really messy till things get sorted out. Apocalypse. Right? Good, evil, heaven, hell, a whole lot of either or thinking, with a primary focus on getting, in the end, to some place that is not here. In this regard, it's important to know about our UU tradition that our heretical ancestors gradually moved the center of our eschatology. They moved the focus on last things from out there somewhere to right here. They moved their understanding of our point, our purpose as human beings, from heaven earthward. This shifted the focus from concerns about the next world and what's going to happen after we die to concerns about this world and what we do while we're here. How we live here is what matters most, they came to believe, not whether and where we go later. Our Universalist ancestors, who believed that everyone would go to heaven in the end, got there this way. They figured that since everyone's going to go to the same place eventually, we might as well start learning to get along now. Over time, both our Universalist and our Unitarian ancestors came to believe that heaven and hell aren't places people go to later. They are conditions we create among us right here. Their goal became not to get to heaven or to avoid hell, but to create heaven on earth and to avoid hell on earth. In other words, to try to create heaven for as many people as possible and try to prevent hell for as many people as possible, as much of life as possible. And this is where our justice work is rooted. What happens here, trying to create heavens for all that we can, where all can flourish, and trying to prevent hells in which anyone or anything suffers unnecessarily. It's a big shift in focus from later out there to right here. And it turns out that our very optimistic and perfectionist Unitarian tradition has often led us to substitute a new linear ideal for the old one we rejected. A new linear eschatology that, as Rebecca Parker puts it, has us always living the tension in the difference between what is and what we believe could and should be. We live in the tension between what is and what we believe could and should be. So even when we understand our wonderful progressive visions for the world as aspirational, in other words, we're never finally going to realize them, they're always a goal we aim for. The problem with that, Parker says, is that our vision for such an ideal always condemns the present. If this is where we're always trying to get to, it perpetually condemns the present, she says, because it means that where we are is never enough. And it leads us to feel that we can never take a break or simply enjoy the goodness of life. She writes that we tend to labor for the ideal, but neglect our own soul's thirst in the process. One alternative, Parker points out, is to hold a radically realized eschatology. I know that's what you were thinking. To hold a radically realized eschatology, whether we ever use those words or not, is to place our hope not in what could be out there later, not to put our hope there, but to put our hope in what is already here now, in what is already realized. This is a tricky shift. It's to place our hope in this world as it is right now, not how it's going to be when we succeed with all our great world-saving plans, because that is never quite going to happen, right? That's the ideal. If we place our hope out there, hope will always be out of reach, hard to hold on to, because it's somewhere else. In religious language, it's to understand that we are already on holy ground, imperfect and holy ground. The classic biblical story that influences so much of the United States culture is that human beings were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and that the goal since then, all this time, has been to get back there. But the truth is, Parker says, that we never really left. We were already in the Garden of Eden and have simply misjudged our location. We have become disoriented. Recalibrating. To draw on Wendell Berry's insight, the end goal is not to get to somewhere else, but to arrive at the ground at our feet and learn to be at home. This is a complex holding, right? Not a simple one. This is not to say that we accept everything about our particular circumstances, or that we don't work for a better world, a world in which more people can thrive, in which people suffer less, in which we are more respectful of the earth. It's to know that even as we do that work for something better, we know in our heart and our gut, not just in our head, that the world, fractured, messy, human-scarred and littered, imperfect, amazing, beautiful, resilient, real, as it is world, is home. And at some deep level, enough now, and worthy focus of our gratitude. Yep, another both and. It's to care and to hold a vision, yes, and to act accordingly, yes, and not to let ourselves get lost or buried or stuck or disoriented in the gap between what is and what we believe could and should be. Parker says the work is to care compassionately for our present realities, imperfect as they are, without getting tangled in our expectations that we can make everything completely better eventually. That gets in our way, she says. It's not actually helping. Hope, she points out, is not really rooted in our idealistic expectations for the future. Hope is rooted in our gratitude right now for what is. The world we know, the world we have learned, the challenged world we have come to love, not suddenly or lightly, but come to love deeply. In this trembling moment, is it still possible to face that gathering darkness and to say to the physical earth and to all its creatures, including ourselves, fiercely and without embarrassment, I love you, and to embrace fearlessly the burning world, not the perfect one later, the burning world. I know this gets rather abstract, but there's also something importantly real in this invitation, something I feel in my heart and in my body while I try to discover what it means through my head. It's about putting love, not fear, at the center. Here too, around our climate justice work, putting love, not fear, at the center. I mean this to open up our conversation about climate and justice between now and however we decide to embody Earth Day in April and beyond. For now, for this moment, picking up on Jerry Kishbaugh's Hildebrand's prayer from our chalice lighting. May we be committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, joining together this day with loving hearts and hands and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth, lighting again and again a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day wisdom, strength, courage to foster a world not of wealth, but of well-being, a world of peace and abundance for all, as we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, the world we know now. May we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and with love. So may we be.
The offering that we collect each Sunday supports all aspects of this church, as well as a nonprofit community partner. Throughout September, our partner has been Habitat for Humanity, and they will receive 50% of your donations today. They demonstrate their caring for others as well as the environment by providing modest, affordable homes for families who participate in the process through sweat equity. This means they spend a certain number of hours working on their home alongside the Habitat volunteers. Since most often they are first-time homeowners, they're also paired with a mentor to learn about caring for their home and property. Habitat has completed 45 homes in our community and have cleared the land for the next 4. As the collection baskets are passed, the slide will tell you additional ways to give, and we also encourage you to visit the Habitat for Humanity website. Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these gifts to caring for our neighbors, our community, and our planet. Thank you.
When you see Linda Siska or Cheryl Spalding, or anytime the people who work with our young folks. I think Lindsay must be up there today too. Would you please say thank you for the beautiful and skillful way they spend time with our young people? Our greeters, Lori and Corey, thank you so much for welcoming people well. Andy in Cyprus, as always, troubleshooting every Sunday, thank you. Eileen, thanks for serving as host. Linda, for the beautiful, peaceful setting. It affects how I feel. Thank you. Beautiful. Thanks to Eileen for reading, and Katie for reading and dancing, and Allison for reading and dancing, both. Gwen Iman is our lay pastoral care team member here today, who makes herself available today to our greeters and others, and to you. Thanks for Ruth and Susan and Rain for working with refreshments, which we do not take for granted these days. And Cheryl, thanks for being worship associate behind that big earth today. Just a couple announcements this week. There's a humanism discussion group on Wednesday, a Parkinson's support group Thursday, a singing meditation, Come Sing and Breathe, on Thursday. And next Sunday, for those who are new to this place and want to find out a little bit more after the service, we do what we call UU 101. It's a brief intro. And after the service today, talking trash with Paul about the state of trash and waste in Nevada County. As always, the website and our newsletters can help you learn much more. We encourage you to check those out or sign up for them. Oh, just to point out that for the folks on Zoom, the Trash Talk will have a different Zoom link. So you can find that right on the homepage of the website. Our closing song needs no explanation. It's a much loved and a song that captures the sense of being on this precious, fragile blue-green dot that we call home. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing. Rise by Gretchen Haley.
Because the tides are rising, so must we rise to this moment.
And love this moment.
Rise to this day.
And love this day.
Rise to this life.
And love this life.
Rise to this place in the web that is yours and ours.
Rise.
Love.
Because the earth remains our only home, and we, fellow travelers, its only hope.
For healing.
Wholeness.
Salvation.
Rise.
Love.
Before the mystery, before the Big Bang that started it all.
That this infinite universe still takes notice of us.
Still feels the in and out of our breath. Still holds us, connects us.
Rise.
Love.
Or surrender with gratitude for this beauty, this chance to be a part of it all.
To give back, to weave.
Life.
Past.
Present.
Future.
Everywhere, always.
As one. I invite you, as Cheryl extinguishes our chalice, to take the moment, to take the connection, to take this community and its values and its love at the center with you, and to remind each other with these words. Together, let us
carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Hang around, bump into each other, talk, have some refreshments, come back for trash talk, and otherwise we'll see you next Sunday where we start our new theme, Deep Listening.